I still remember the night when I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, feeling like my entire existence was slipping through my fingers. My name is Daniel, and for as long as I can remember, I've lived with this quiet weight pressing down on me, a weight made heavier every time I compared myself to someone else. It wasn't always obvious, but it was always there, like a shadow that followed me wherever I went. I grew up in a small town, surrounded by people who seemed to know exactly who they were and what they wanted. My childhood friend, Mark, was always the golden boy. In school, he was the top student, the captain of the basketball team, the one everyone admired. Teachers praised him, girls liked him, and parents wished their children could be more like him. And then there was me. Just Daniel, the boy who tried but never quite measured up. I wasn't terrible at anything, but I wasn't great either. My grades were average, my looks were ordinary, and my confidence, well, I hardly had any. Whenever Mark scored a goal, I clapped. Whenever he won an award, I smiled. But deep down, every cheer I gave him felt like a reminder of my own inadequacy. This pattern followed me into adulthood. By the time I turned 27, I was stuck in a job I didn't love, living in a tiny apartment that always smelled faintly of damp paint, and scrolling through social media every night like it was some sort of punishment. I'd see college classmates posting pictures of their weddings, promotions, vacations to places I couldn't even pronounce. I'd see the lives of others shining like stars, while mine felt dim and dull. The breaking point came one evening when I sat across from my younger sister, Emily, at a small diner near my apartment. She was just 22, full of life, already working at a company that adored her. As she spoke about her future, her plans to travel, the joy in her eyes, something inside me cracked. I smiled at her, but inside, I was screaming. Why not me? Why can't I shine like that? Why is my life always stuck in the shadows? That night, when I got home, I broke down. I didn't just cry, I wept. The kind of crying that feels like it's pulling years of suppressed pain out of your chest. I thought about every failure, every missed opportunity, every time I wasn't chosen. I thought about the way I had wasted years comparing my journey to everyone else's, as if their path was supposed to be mine. Somewhere between the sobs, I whispered a prayer I hadn't prayed in years. God, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who I am anymore. Please, show me something. Show me why I'm even here. And that's when something changed. It didn't happen like a thunderclap or a miracle. It was quiet, almost invisible, but it was there. A small thought, like a seed planted in the soil of my weary heart. What if your story doesn't need to look like anyone else's? What if you're enough, even now? The days that followed weren't easy. I didn't wake up the next morning suddenly confident or free. But something inside me had shifted. For the first time, I decided to pay attention to myself, not the polished lives I saw online, not the voices in my head telling me I wasn't enough. Just me. I began with small things. Every morning, instead of rushing out of bed, I sat by my window for a few minutes, watching the way the sunlight spilled through the blinds. I started writing in a journal, pouring out my doubts, my fears, but also little notes of gratitude, tiny victories, like finishing a project at work or calling an old friend. At first, it felt pointless. But slowly, I realized I was noticing things I had ignored for years. The way the barista at the cafe remembered my order. The way the old man at the bus stop smiled at everyone. The way Emily's laughter always filled a room like music. Life was still imperfect, still messy, but it was alive. And so was I. One weekend, I signed up for a local community writing class. I had always loved words but never thought I was good enough to pursue them. Still, something inside me whispered, try. The first night, as I sat in that circle of strangers, I felt like a fraud. Everyone seemed smarter, more creative, more sure of themselves. But when it was my turn to read a short piece I had written, something surprising happened. People listened, really listened, and when I finished, a woman across the room smiled and said, that felt real. It was the first time in years I felt seen not for what I lacked, but for what I had to give. The more I wrote, the more I healed. My words became a mirror, showing me truths I had long ignored. I wasn't Mark, the golden boy. I wasn't Emily, the shining star. I wasn't any of the people I scrolled past on Instagram. I was Daniel, the boy who had been quietly carrying pain but also quietly holding a kind of strength he had never noticed before. I still stumbled. Some nights, the old thoughts crept back in, whispering that I wasn't enough. But instead of letting them drown me, I began to answer back. I reminded myself, Your life is not a race. Your story is not a competition. You are walking your own road, one step at a time. Months passed, and something beautiful unfolded. I found myself enjoying my job, not because it was glamorous, but because I started to see the people around me. I helped a coworker who was struggling. I took time to actually listen instead of always wishing I was somewhere else. And for the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was living. One afternoon, I visited my parents' house. My father, who had always been quiet, pulled me aside. "Daniel," he said, his voice steady but warm, "you've changed. You seem lighter, happier." And he was right. I was still in the same town, the same apartment, the same job. But I was no longer carrying the chains of comparison. I had stopped measuring my worth by someone else's ruler. I had stopped believing the lie that my life had to look like anyone else's to be meaningful. I remember one particular evening when Emily called me, overwhelmed with work and doubts. She said, "I feel like I'm not good enough. Like everyone else is moving faster than me." I laughed softly, not at her, but with the deep recognition of her pain. I told her, "Listen, your journey is yours alone. Don't rush, don't compare, just live it." Trust me, I learned that the hard way. As the months turned into a year, I realized that comparison had been stealing my joy all along. I used to think life was about winning, achieving, proving. But now I see it differently. Life is about becoming. It's about taking broken pieces and shaping them into something meaningful. It's about showing up for yourself, even on the days when you feel invisible. The day I stopped comparing myself wasn't one single day, it was a collection of moments, choices, whispers of courage. It was a decision I made every morning, to look at my own reflection and say, "You're enough, just as you are." And maybe, that's the secret we all forget. We spend so much time measuring ourselves against others that we forget the beauty of our own story. We forget that even the cracks in our lives let the light in. Today, I'm still not the most successful, the most admired, or the most celebrated. But I've learned something far more important. I've learned that peace comes not from being better than someone else, but from being true to yourself. I've learned that joy blooms when you stop chasing someone else's life and start embracing your own. So if you're listening to this, and you feel like you're behind, like you're not enough, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not late. You are not less. You are not defined by someone else's timeline. You are walking your own path, and that path has value. I am Daniel, the boy who once lived in shadows. And now, I am Daniel, the man who has learned to see the light in his own story. And this is the day I stopped comparing myself.